What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of the Neon Spotlight. This is the segment on my channel where I go back through Neon's entire filmography from the first film they released all the way until whenever I get caught up. In today's movie, I was actually really excited to watch because this is directed by Brady Corbet, who is currently receiving a ton of praise and accolades for his newest film, The Brutalist, which is nominated for multiple Academy Awards. And as of the recording of this video, this could possibly change. I still haven't seen The Brutalist, so I can't speak on that film yet. But I was really excited to watch this movie just to get an idea of who he is as a director. And I know this is one of the early films in his catalog. I didn't know much about it other than it was about a pop star played by Natalie Portman. And the movie I'm going to be telling you about today is Vox Lux. Vox Lux is directed by Brady Corbet. In 1999, teenage sisters Celeste and Eleanor survive a seismic, violent tragedy. The sisters compose and perform a song about their experience, making something lovely and cathartic out of catastrophe, while also catapulting Celeste to stardom. By 2017, the now 31-year-old Celeste is mother to a teenage daughter of her own and struggling to navigate a career fraught with scandals when another act of terrifying violence demands her attention. So, like I said, I knew very little about this movie other than it was about a pop star. Didn't know about all the tragedy that was incorporated, but as the movie started, I was really interested in where it was going to go. And unfortunately, if I was going to describe this movie in one word, it's a mess. I thought this movie was complete and utter trash. It's laughably bad in every conceivable way. And it just feels like someone trying so hard to create something emotionally resonant that has no idea how to convey authentic human emotion. All of the characters in this movie feel fake. They feel so inauthentic, especially Natalie Portman's character. And I'll talk about it a little bit more as I break the movie down. So the plot description really breaks all that down very well. The lead character we're introduced to is Celeste, who in her later years is played by Natalie Portman, but early on is played by Raffey Cassidy. And we see her go into a classroom in the morning. She sits down with all of the students in her class, and this young boy who comes in wearing like eye makeup and glitter has a gun, and he ends up killing everyone in the classroom except for Celeste. And she ends up making it out alive, and it creates all of this turmoil within the community. And she goes to this like candlelight vigil, and they want her to speak out about what happens because she's one of the few survivors. And instead of speaking, her and her sister play a song together, and that song becomes a global sensation. Everyone hears it and they want to hear more. And so, very quickly, Celeste's parents kind of push her onto a manager and get the wheels turning for her to start her music career. And we see little bits and pieces of her early on in her career as a teenager, and like the way the whole like stardom life hits her when she grew up in, seemingly from the dialogue, a young conservative Christian family. And then we jump forward into the future, into her early 30s, where Celeste is played by Natalie Portman. And this tragedy happens where these men all go onto this beach wearing masks that are in one of her music videos and kill all of these innocent people on a beach. And the entirety of the film is us watching adult Celeste and her reaction to that situation and how she's dealing with it in her personal life. Like I said, I really disliked this movie quite a bit, but I will talk about some of the positives. For starters, I really liked the visuals in this movie. Cinematographically, the film is gorgeous. There are so many sequences in this movie that I was just really impressed at where the camera was placed, or really long take sequences of conversations or characters moving throughout a space, which I can understand why, if it translates into The Brutalist, why that's getting a lot of praise for its visuals, because this movie looks incredible. And there were so many scenes that I just thought the cinematography was completely and totally breathtaking. And that was something I very much appreciated. I also thought the introduction to the subject matter was really fascinating. Having this tragedy kind of like set off this person's career, it was really interesting. And I found the first 20 minutes or so of this movie to be incredibly immersive. And I was really curious as to where it was going to take the story and whether I would appreciate Corbet's storytelling methods. And so that initial sort of draw into the film was something else that I can really appreciate. But aside from those factors, everything else in the movie made it a miserable slog to get through. I'll start with The performances in this film are really bad. And say that all across the board. Natalie Portman is an actress who I have really appreciated throughout her entire career. I don't know what this performance is. I don't know what the accent she was trying to do is. I don't know if she thought she was being genuinely authentic in some of the more emotional moments, but everything in this movie, whenever she was on screen, it felt so incredibly hokey. Every line delivery, every reaction to a character, none of it felt like a person. This felt like someone who watched like one of those VH1 behind the scenes documentaries of one of these music artists and like put every single cliche into a movie in a way that doesn't work at all. Because, like I said early on, it's really interesting that you have this character who has gone through this immense amount of tragedy. She grew up in a very conservative Christian household, and she's exposed to the pop star life where she's surrounded by drugs and sex and all of these different things. And like showing a character and their sort of shift into like the new lifestyle that they're living and how they used to live as a kid is not paralleled to how they exist as an adult. And I think there are so many interesting avenues that you can go with that. And this took every single cliche in the most like laughable, eye rolly way. There were so many moments I was like, okay, this is where the story's going to go next, and this is what's going to happen next. And it was just really bad. I don't really know what else to say other than like you're following a formula, and the formula is very uninteresting. I also think a lot of the scenes in this movie, they're just long bouts of expositional dialogue between characters. And like anytime they tried to build relationship between Natalie Portman's character and her daughter, which I found it to be incredibly distracting that her daughter was played by the exact same actress who played the younger version of herself, a little bit too on the nose. But regardless, anytime they tried to have any sort of emotional scenes, all their dialogue, it just felt so fake and forced. There's a scene in like the middle part of the movie where she takes her daughter to this diner, and this guy comes up and tries to ask her to take a picture, and like the whole scene, it's so forced. The actor who's in the diner is absolutely terrible. Like the back and forth, it just doesn't feel natural or realistic. And there's a way that this material could be approached that these people come across as human beings, but they never do. They just come across as these really over exaggerated caricatures. And that was my big issue with Natalie Portman's character, is she just feels like an exaggerated caricature of a pop star. And then like Willem Dafoe narrating the film, like show us what's going on instead of just giving us these really like long bouts of dialogue that expect us to build some level of emotional connection by just saying like, here's some tragedies the character experienced, now you know about it, so hopefully that translates into the movie when you're trying to feel some sort of semblance of compassion for them. And Natalie Portman's character as an adult, you do feel like, okay, this is a child who went through tragedy. They're an adult now, but they're an asshole. Like she is terrible to the people in her life. She's terrible to the people around her. She's not really a good person. And so because of that, it makes any of the emotional resonance of the film that it's trying to go for not pay off in any sort of satisfying way. I also feel like the music in this movie is really bad. And I saw Sia compose most of the music for this. And when you think about like the generation we live in now, or even in the past 20 years, there's so many incredible pop musicians and amazing songs that were created. And every song in this movie was really flat and uninspiring. The whole like last 10-minute segment where it's like Natalie Portman performing these songs on stage, it was some of the most visually uninspiring moments of the film. Like it's a concert, make it enthralling to watch, make it interesting. And it just didn't. It was just flat. And I feel like what the film was trying to say at the end, especially when it's like, okay, her as an adult, she's trying to confront this tragedy that happened to these people where they're like utilizing her image, commit these heinous acts, where it's very similar that she's sort of taken the looks of this young kid and kind of attached it to her career as like I'm living through my trauma in this specific way. And I'm like, the idea is much more fascinating than the execution of the idea. And when the movie ended, I was just like, none of this is gonna sit with me in a week. I'm not gonna remember any of this. It's not gonna resonate with me in a way that I think Brady Corbet wishes that it would. And I just think this movie is a mess, and I will probably never watch this again. So have you seen Vox Lux? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. thought. I thought this movie was terrible. I really hated everything about it, and I don't plan on ever watching it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.